Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this season 2, episode 3 on on quilt piecing. Yay. There's several different methods of quilting, terms that you'll hear in quilting, and some of you may be very intimidated by hearing so many different things. Lorinda's laughing at me. That's okay. Go ahead. There were a lot of comments when I came back. So what happens is when I'm sharing something like that document that I had up, I don't see your comments. This is why it'd be nice to have an assistant, but we're the hotspot for the United States right now here in Arizona. So it's just me here. I can't wait till I can bring people in to help with this. But in the meantime, we're trying to stay safe. Hi, Connie. Hi, Better Days. Hi, Tina. Hi, Barb, Deborah, Sandy, Karen, Mary, Valerie. I can hear you. Yay. Oh my gosh, I feel so bad. Seriously, I did not unplug that mic. It was very weird for it to unplug. For those of you who are joining us after, this is a retake, or I just went, whatever. I'll let it go live and I'll make notes. This is when I have time, I'm going back and I make chapters for the videos that are live, and I say when I talked about this and when I talked about that, and you'll find them in the description below the video. So you guys all saw that page a few times. And the problem was I coughed, and I didn't want you to hear me cough with my mic at full volume. You'll come and stay with me, Sandy? Okay, here we go. So yes, I am piecing a king-size quilt, Connie. I am. And this is my king-size quilt. This is one of the blocks. 16-inch blocks. And by the way, I had already quilted this whole quilt together, and I didn't have enough fabric. And the one that I didn't have enough of is the one I didn't like the most. And it's the one that has the metallic back on it. Or that's the actual front is a metallic, but the back side I absolutely loved, and I could not find it in any of the stores. It'd been too many years since I bought it. You were looking at Bernie Sanders memes in another window, and then all of a sudden my voice started again. You forgot I had my live stream. They're kind of funny. I don't care who you voted for. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like the elf on the shelf. But we talk about sewing in this show. Okay, so there's different types of piecing. There's strip piecing, and strip piecing, well, it's done with strips. And you can take and you can sew one strip to another strip. And usually you'll get anywhere from 12 to 15, 20 different colors of strips in a jelly roll. And a jelly roll is what you see on my little shelf there. I just don't want to open it. And it was jelly rolls that I used for these placemats that I had out and ready to show you. Here they are. This is actually one of the jelly rolls. This is the same as the jelly roll that's on its side. And I really love this roll. And so I'm going to use that to make more things that match it for my house. This is what I use for this is what I use for cups instead of round coasters. I use placemat size or pot holder size quilts. And what I did on this was I actually quilted with the octahoops all the way around all those designs. If you've used the octahoops and you want to quilt something this little, what you do is you take a big piece of batting and you lay all your squares out on top of it. Then stitch a top stitch all the way around each one on the batting, and don't cut the batting. It's okay, I don't need the fabric anymore, because what I did to offset that is I just added what I needed all along, which was a light complementary or contrasting color. And this is where I'm going to actually do my piecing or my quilt designs. I'm going to quilt in each one of the light colored squares. I'm going to leave the others open, I think, because I like a quilt to have some softness to it. And I think if you quilt too much, it becomes too rigid from all of the stitching. Don't you agree? Have any of you ever made a quilt and you quilted the whole thing and then it was just really, really heavy from all the thread in there? You're working up the courage to use the hoops. Well, how many of you are scared of the octi hoops? That's not what this subject is today. Today it's about piecing. So one of the things that I use to make sure that I'm square is the Caterpillar light tablet. And you can take your pieces and put them beneath the pad or the mat because it's see-through and the light helps you to see what that particular piece is supposed to be square. So you can lay your pieces on top and know that you're square really fast and move on to the next piece. Instead of having to take out your ruler and measure each piece, you can just use it as a template to know that you didn't stretch your fabric when piecing them together. You can dye your own fabric. You can ink your own fabric using our inks as well. So if you have a piece that is missing, in other words, I could have inked something to make look like it went along with this quilt, but instead I got this complementary fabric. And I got 2 different colors of this, by the way. I had a whole bunch of them out. Where did I put them? I need someone to fetch my stuff for me when oh, there it is. Tinkerbell, she's always taking naps. So these are 2 different fabrics here. My design wall was supposed to be up today, but I didn't get it done. So this is a different color of the same theme. And so I have some of the diamonds on the corners are one fabric and some of them are other. And so I'm going to create and lay it out on a design wall that's going to be hanging back here, hopefully next week. And I will construct or put all these squares together, show you how to plot out your quilt. This is done with the same idea, and this is not a bad idea to start with a little quilt. And this I use for placemats. I have a really nice little, can you see Tinkerbell? She's kind of hidden today behind everything else. We have I have a table that comes up so I can sit and I can work on my computer. It's also really nice to eat at. It's kind of like having a table that's a tray. What do they have? Those TV dinner tray kind of thing. And it's really nice wood, so I always place one of these beneath my eating. Okay, we're talking piecing. This is the curved piecing piece, and I really can't remember all the things that I said. But I'm going to remove the stitching out of this and show you how we can sew a curved piece using the Satinedge Foot. Are you referring to the octi hoops, Ellen? Let me see here. Are you referring to the octi hoops being a little bit cumbersome for a big quilt? Better for smaller projects? So if you guys have it in your mind what you see someone do with a big long arm machine where they do sweeping moves like this. Yes, the octi hoops is not going to allow you to move in big sweeping movements, but we're not talking free motion today. I promise we're going to quilt the quilt, but not this week. This week we're piecing. Do any of you have any questions about piecing? I was talking before about, this is a half square triangle because it's by itself. That triangle is half of a square. But if you have 4 of these, then they're quarter squares, because four of these makes 1 square, so that would be a quarter square. There's a lot of terms that can get confusing. Use the Satinedge Foot to quilt 4 baby quilts. It's awesome. It helps you stitch in a ditch. Okay, so let's get back to the topics. And I'm gonna, at least I know you guys can hear me, everything. This better not switch again. I think it's because I switched cameras and the other one didn't have the mic. I don't know. I line up my seams because I know how to use the Satinedge Foot. We're going to talk about what makes it difficult for you guys to sew straight. First, we'll talk about beliefs. You can only use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Is that true? No, it's not true. 1/4 inch seam allowance didn't even come about until about the 80s. We used to use 3/8 inch seam allowances. Kay Wood and I used to talk about it, how all the rules have gotten so uptight, and then, you know, we just had a lot of fun not worrying about it, because the development of machine quilting is relatively young. A lot of people did it by hand before. Is there such a thing as a scant 1/4 inch? Raise your hand if there's a scant 1/4 inch. Did you learn it in school? There is no scant 1/4 inch in math. There is no such thing as a scant 1/4 inch. So how come it's talked about in quilting? It's talked about in quilting because people have patterns where they print out the pattern, and if you don't sew all your pieces with the seam allowance that they use for that pattern, then your quilt will not fit, or it won't be the exact same thing. So if you have a sewing machine that cannot achieve a full 1/4 inch with our Satinedge Foot, you can still do it, and it will be slightly smaller than a 1/4 inch seam allowance. What does that mean for your overall quilt? It means if your seam allowance is smaller than a 1/4 inch, that your quilt will be a little bigger when it's done, as long as your math is the same all the way through. So as long as on that particular project you use the same seam allowance, I'm talking like I'm from Italy now, you use the same seam allowance throughout the entire project, then mathematically it will all fit. If you switch, if you do part of it with a smaller 1/4 inch, calling that a scant, and part of it with a full 1/4, and part of it with a little bit bigger, well, then your squares aren't going to be square. And when you try to bring all 4 of your little pieces together, then they will not line up right. And I'm sure I have a sample of that in here because I've done it. And that's because I use rulers to try to make sure I'm square instead of just laying my fabric right on top of a square. This is something I learned to do making my quilt, having messed up on the fabric size. So then I go, okay, so that's the size I'm supposed to have for my square. Yay. And then, well, hopefully you cut it square. A lot of people don't cut square. Why? Have you guys ever... Hi, Bob. Bob Riddle. That's your last name. I always can't remember your last name when I mention you. He's the one that started calling the Satinedge Foot the magic foot. Nice to have you with us. I'm so glad you finally made it. And for those of you who don't know, I have a school, an online school. The gremlin was shaking the camera. That might have been my dog Chase bumping the tripod, but I didn't see it. I don't know. We have gremlins in the studio today. Turned off my mic and muted me, and unplugged the microphone. That's the weird thing. You guys are talking a lot. So my school, I can type it in here, but it's create. And I wish that I could just sit there and talk to you guys all the time, but I have a business to run, and so the best thing for me is to gather you all up kind of scoop all you up and put you in one place, which is my goal, to have you in the school. And I really, 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 really want you guys to like ask questions inside of the school, not a private message to me, because then only you get the answer. And I'm only one person. We're over 2,000 members now. So that's a lot. That's just one of my membership groups. So, okay, back to that document. Some people believe it's not good to pre-wash your fabric. And for me, that's just interesting, for one. For one thing, if you don't pre-wash your fabric, you can have colors bleed into other colors. For instance, this, especially if it's red fabric tends to bleed into. So if you were to just make your quilt and you sewed these two fabrics next to each other, then the purple could bleed right into that. And when you pre-wash your fabric, you can put what's called a color catcher inside of there to catch the red dye. And I'm sure there's plenty of videos on YouTube showing you how to use color catchers to pre-wash your fabric. Now, what if you have a giant piece of fabric? Like me, I buy the whole bolt sometimes. Do I throw the whole bolt, unroll it, and throw it in the washing machine? No, unless the fabric itself unless the fabric itself has white fabric and then lots of other deep colors in it. So in other words, these are different pieces of fabric. But if this fabric here had like red hearts on it and the majority of the fabric was white, I would then definitely open the fabric up to wash it. Probably cut it in smaller pieces rather than throw it in all in one piece. But if it is one fabric, like the whole fabric is that, then I leave it folded and put it inside of a lingerie bag, which is a netted bag so that water and soap and everything can get in and the stuff you wash off can exit. And then it has a zipper as well. And then even throw it in the dryer, still fold it up. Because, have you ever tried to fold back or iron and fold everything back up again? And why do I recommend that you wash? Because there's chemicals on your fabric that are cancer causing. If you live in California, you can't buy fabric with some of the sizing in it that we have anymore because they outlawed it. So after you wash your fabric, it can be really flimsy because it's lost some of what they put on it to make it thick or to make it firm. And then you can just spray iron, and then it will have nice body for you to sew. That's another thing that you can do to make it easier to sew a straight stitch, is to spray starch your fabric before cutting it out. And then when you go to piece it, it has nice body and kind of locks the bias. It stops it from being as stretchy as it normally would be. Pre-washing is a good idea also because the fabric's going to stretch. I use polyester thread instead of cotton so that my polyester thread doesn't stretch. I use bamboo batting, which has very small, very, very light amount of shrinkage when it gets washed. And I believe you can actually pre-wash one of the bamboo battings, the lighter weight one, not the thicker one. In the same manner, leave it folded inside of a lingerie bag, and then you don't need to wash it because there's no chemicals on bamboo batting. Instead, you just wet it and then throw it in the dryer, and it will dry and shrink before you ever go to use it. So everything will not change after you've sewn it. That's how you get a nice looking quilt when you're finished. Should you only use cotton thread on cotton fabric? So this was something that a friend of mine who is a fabulous quilt designer started to talk about, and everyone believed her. Yes, we'll talk about that, Barb. Pressing versus ironing. So you want to press, lift the iron, move it over, and press. It's okay. You can be late to these. These are live, but you know, I go on and on sometimes. In fact, it's 45 minutes long already. And the chat's moving faster than I can handle it at this point. So we're talking about, which part were we on? Oh, the cotton thread. That's right. So cotton thread is, now there's good quality cotton thread. It's gotten a lot better over the years, but it is weaker than polyester thread, and it's a living organism. In fact, it's a little cotton ball, right? It's plucked from the plant, and they unwind it, and it ends up a certain length, you know, and it's a living being that is deceased, and anything that is alive that dies begins to rot. So in your fabric doesn't rot as fast because it's thicker, and also because, well, they treat it with things to make it last or live or survive longer. But it's partly why you get holes in your t-shirts. Cotton is rotting as you wear it, as it sits in a drawer. It's decaying. It can't stop it. It's awful to hear that if you don't know that already. It also shrinks, bleeds, fades, and breaks. So those are reasons I don't use it on a quilt unless it's a baby quilt and the thread is going to touch the skin. And I mean infants, because babies can handle a little bit of polyester. But if you're going to do an applique, I would use cotton, thread, or rayon for any applique decorative work that you may be wanting to do. Remember, Sandy, it's only the thinner weight bamboo batting that you can do that with. They have two kinds. One has a scrim in it, and scrim is a type of material that they build the batting onto. And then one, they don't have that scrim. It's needle punched instead, and it can break into pieces. And it sounds terrible, but the bamboo batting is super soft, and it has high levels of static cling, so it stays stuck to itself. And so this is the one with scrim. As I try to peel this off, it actually is stuck to the fabric. This is why I'm using this for my design wall rather than felt, because I've never felt, that's funny, I've never felt anything stickier than this batting. Or I can just throw fabric on it, and it, like when my design wall's up there, I can just throw fabric on it and it will just be stuck on it. It's awesome. I probably should just not work at all on the days I go live and just make it all about the show. But we had so many orders to get out, and I wanted to make everybody happy. You can use cotton fabric. You can use any fabric you want. You can use cotton thread. I just want you to know that if you do, you will end up having something that won't last as long. And polyester is what they call not breathable. So when it's hot, it can be hot. When it's cold, it can be cold. Yes, I accidentally used the pun felt, but I didn't mean to. So fabric is breathable. You can breathe through it. But the point that they're making when they say breathable, when they're talking about polyester batting, is that polyester batting will be hot when it's hot and cold when it's cold. Of course, it's inside of your fabric, and the fabric, if it's cotton, it will not have that same problem. It'll just last longer, because polyester batting is never going to rot away. I put my hand, or not my hand, one of my customers put her hand on some wool batting, and the next show I was at, her handprint was embedded into the wool batting. The oils in her skin made the wool batting decay. But we're not talking batting. We're talking piecing. Well, you guys are good at getting me to change my conversation. Let's see. Get back to the document. That's why I did document, so I could stay on point. Because quilting is such a big topic, isn't it? You should only use a sharp needle so your stitch is straighter. So, once upon a time, sewing machines were mostly oscillating hooks. The hook of the sewing machine would go left and right. And it made for a more straight looking stitch on the fabric. And Bernina sewing machines are known for having a more straight stitch because they maintain that oscillating hook. The problem with a straight stitch is it's more fragile and more likely to break under the stretch or expansion of the fabric. If this quilt is on a bed and someone sits on it, it'll stretch, and a straight stitch is more likely to break than a not straight stitch. The problem with a sharp needle, and the reason you get a straighter stitch with a sharp needle, is that you are cutting through like a knife, chopping right through your fabric weave. So the next time somebody goes and sits on your quilt, the fabric can actually start to tear. It's what was wrong with garments. You'd buy a shirt and the seam allowance would be shredding after only a couple wears of it. A lot of us just thought we needed to lose weight, but it was the needle, because we didn't have rounded tip or ballpoint needles until the 80s. And that was true of manufacturers as well. So I recommend, just to recap, that you use a universal needle, or light rounded tip, or light ballpoint is what they used to call them, needle, for piecing. Is it okay to stretch your fabric to get pieces to fit? And this is something that people do a lot when they do a drunkard's path. I so want a sip of this. When you sew a drunkard's path, and I will be doing it, a lot of people stretch the curved piece. And when you do that, you're actually stretching that curved piece, making it bigger than the pattern calls for. So if you stretch it and then you lock it in place with the straight stitch, after you're done sewing, and I thought I had one sewn wrong that you could look at. And you can't see because of this camera, but we'll switch cameras, and hopefully I'll be paying attention to make sure the microphone comes back on. Let's see here. I can't split the screen with this one. I still have my microphone, it shows. So you'll see how I have perfect seam allowances. And this is not squared off. There's just a teeny tiny bit extended over, and this is how we designed the drunkard's path die set, was to have just a smidge bigger piece than this one, so that you didn't feel the need to stretch, because as you're coming around, you'll be holding on to these two pieces, except for they'll be like this as you sew, and you just want to keep holding on, and that's in essence what makes this stretch. I've given you a little bit extra opportunity than any other die for the drunkard's path in this design, so that you don't stretch your pieces out. Then you would lay it down and go, okay, my square on your predetermined square that's underneath, so you know that you're square. And if you're not, the temptation is to then square off the piece. And what does that mean when we say square off? We're actually saying, okay, this piece is too big. So you take your ruler and then you cut and you make the piece smaller so that it ends up the correct size square for your project. But if you stretched that fabric out and then you squared it off, what happens is the piece itself may be smaller now, but once you wash and dry the quilt, it'll shrink back to the size that it really is. So we don't want to square off something if you stretched the material to make that actually be too big in the first place. I know that's not exciting to hear. So what if you just have a heavy hand? If you have arthritis, it's hard for you to not hold too much sometimes. First off, always spray starch your fabric before cutting out your pieces so that they are less likely to stretch. They'll have more body. And then secondly, take them, get them wet, throw them in a lingerie bag and dry them before you square them off. That way you're not squaring them off and making them too small. Make sense? If it makes sense, do a thumbs up. Any of you ever have a situation like that? Yes, fabric has memory. It is it's something that we don't think about when we think of cotton fabric. We think this is a non-stretch fabric, but is it? It's actually not. It has a weave as interlocking fabrics that shift, which make it seem like it stretches. So when we go across the bias on it, it can expand quite a bit. And that's what we're talking about when we're on a curve. You're actually going across the bias on the fabric, and that is the stretchy. That's the way the fabric stretches the most. It's not really stretching though. It's just moving the fibers, and you're distorting or deforming that piece rather than keeping it the right shape. So that's what causes a lot of Junkers Path quilts to never be used again after they've been washed and dried. I've seen it talked about in different discussion groups inside of Facebook and other places, and people were like in tears because they worked so hard on those quilts and they washed and dried it, and the whole quilt just changed on the surface. And it's not your fault. It's just science. Got to use your scientist thinking cap before you do things. How do you sew without stretching it? I'm going to sew a curved piece, I promise. We're almost done with this particular. We're just going to talk first, and then I'm going to sew. And then I'm going to say, see you next week. So let's see here, brand. Squaring off, okay. You should always press your seams over, not apart. How many of you have heard that before? Thumbs up if you've heard that. You should always press your seams to one side. Is that true? I love saying never say never and never say always, because there's never always one solution for anything. If you sew your pieces and you want to stitch in a ditch quilt, then definitely fold your pieces over. But if you're going to use the octi hoops or any other method of free motion, you don't want that thickness where the two fabrics meet. You want to have it as flat as possible so you're less likely to break a needle under that. Now, if you're going to use the Satinedge foot and you're going to do a stitch in a ditch, well, then we want that folded over seam, because the foot then can feel the edge of the fabric that is raised up as a result of pressing your fabrics under. And I will go over that again as when I go to stitch this. And there'll be another episode of this on quilting, stitching in a ditch style. And we can use the Satinedge foot right on top of the quilt. It doesn't cause it to pucker. So yes, and you press your, so if you're going to quilt, and that's what this is. So on the back side, I have my seam allowance going to the dark side. People make fun of Star Wars and say, always press to the dark side. And you do that because you don't want to see. And maybe I should bring this to the other camera so you can see better. I don't know why I couldn't get my cell phone not to make noise. Every day there's another thing to learn. So you can see the seam allowance is right here, facing or pointing toward the green fabric. And you really wouldn't be able to notice anything really without the light tablet. But you can see through the tablet, you can see the seam allowance is on the dark side of the fabric, so it's less likely to show up. If I pressed it to the opposite way, well, you'd see that dark color. And this is only pressed with one of my pressers, by the way, and it holds it so well. So you can see that dark color showing through the light. This is a similar thing to remember when doing applique, something I forgot to mention last week. So if you didn't catch last week's episode, it was on applique, and one of the things I usually tell you is if you're going to use, say you're going to do a snowman and you're going to put him with a cloudy dark sky behind him, then you would want to put a permanent fusible interfacing on that white fabric before you put the fusible to iron it down. And what that does is it blocks the white fabric from seeing all the other pieces beneath it that overlap, because when you applique, you overlap your seams. My hands look wonderful today. Thank you. they have a little makeup on. It'll, we'll see what you think when I'm on the sewing machine. Let's see. Okay. The next thing we can talk about is needle, fabric, batting. I'm putting this up. Remember, you can watch this again. And when you do, I can see this different color behind it. That's so weird. I think it's because this needs to be. Nope, I have no idea why that is. I made that card too small. Interesting. Okay, so what needle, thread, fabric, and batting to use? Will the quilt be hung on a wall? Is it an art quilt? If it is, then it doesn't matter what you do because no one's going to sit on it. So even if you use a sharp needle, it's not going to matter. If you use cotton thread, not going to matter. The cotton thread will last a lot longer if it's never washed. If it just hangs on the wall as art, you can pretty much go for it and use anything you want. And this is when people started teaching to use sharp needles. Because once you step out of your pajamas on making a quilt for a bed and you put on your workout clothes for putting a quilt on the wall, all the rules don't matter anymore. So there was a lot of misinformation being taught simply because we went from teaching you how to make bed quilts to making wall quilts. And then when the rules didn't matter, the science kind of fell apart and people started teaching bad science for bed quilts. If you're making a quilt with cotton fabric for a bed, you should be, I've already discussed the needle, using the rounded tip needle. Are you making a memory quilt? You want to use stretchy shirts? You're going to use a stretchy thread. I may have mentioned this while my sound was off. So there's rounded tip needles, also known as light ball point. That's what they used to call them. Now they're calling them rounded tip. The Schmetz line has a stretch needle, and the stretch needle gives your machine more chance to form the stitch. So if you sew a memory quilt and you skip stitches, try a stretch needle. That should fix the problem. And don't use a sharp needle on a stretch fabric ever. The batting is really entirely up to you. And we did discuss that. So one of the reasons bamboo is my favorite is it's more sustainable. It lasts longer than cotton, silk, and wool. Actually, I don't really know about silk's lifespan, so I'm going to just say it definitely lasts longer than wool and cotton. So some people say, well, bamboo batting is more expensive, but is it really if it's still in your quilt 5 years later and the cotton batting has disappeared? And I mean disappeared. And I know this is not pleasant to learn about, but this was something that I did, and I would pass this around at shows. This is a lesson on starting in the middle and working your way out. Something that, another term that's misused, but it has nothing to do with piecing. This has to do with quilting, quilt designs. Usually when you start you're in the middle and work your way out, it's because you're trying to not have to tie any knots. So this entire thing was done without ever stopping to tie a knot. And I used a 1/4 inch thick cotton batting for this. And would take this to the shows. Any of you see me at shows, you may have actually touched this at a show. This is the one that if you touch it, there's no batting in it at all anymore. It's just a couple pieces of fabric with no batting in it. Who makes the stretch needle? Ellen, it's on our website, the Schmetz line. They're the ones who invented the needle. There's some of these companies came up later, but Schmetz was the inventor of the universal needle. I met the guy that invented it. He came to our store when I was very young. Now I'm 58. Just turned 58 last week. Okay, I think we're ready to actually start sewing. I discussed all the things I feel like you need to know. Bamboo batting flies in the air like Minky does sometimes. So, more good info on needles. Yeah, needles are baffling to a lot of people simply because there's so many. And why do you need them? And the term universal needle was very confusing. A lot of people thought universal means universal to everything we're going to do. And that's simply not true. So, going to try my cell phone, but our microphone is probably going to pick it up because for some reason it's playing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put up something really quick for you guys to look at while I adjust the other camera instead. Try not to make any of you suffer through me fiddling around today. So for you to recap that while I move this other camera. Some live videos, they have a thing that says, be right back for commercial break. Think of this as a commercial break. I was going to try to have the third camera today, but didn't get to it. It's a good time for you guys to talk to each other. Okay, I'm going to switch to the other camera, and it's not as front facing as I would like for you to see. And if you guys are willing and you want me to show it again with the cell phone, I'll just work it out for you guys if that's what you desire. And this is my little butterfly machine, which I absolutely love. So the term universal on the back of the needle has nothing to do with the fabric. It has to do with sewing machines didn't all used to have the same size needle, length of needle, and system of needle. And coincidentally, at the same time, what he wanted to do was he wanted to make a needle that wouldn't cut the fabric, because garment manufacturers were having the seam shredding occurring. And he was like, well, I'm going to handle the domestic industry as well. But there's like hundreds of different needle systems. And he's like, heck, if I'm going to make 100 different needle systems, just because I'm releasing a needle that won't damage the fabric. So when the needle goes through the fabric, it has a rounded tip, and it takes these fibers and it pushes them aside like that, rather than cutting through the finger, for instance. Instead of cutting through the fiber, it goes between them and pushes them aside. And that's why you have garments now that don't fall apart after you wear them only a couple times. The universal needle is universal to all sewing machines after 1980. He got all the sewing machine companies together, or he didn't gather them in one room, but he got all the sewing machine companies to agree to change their sewing machine. This is what happens when you do piecing with strip piecing, and they're all the same size. Eventually you'll end up with them not lining up on the ends. So back to the Schmetz story, because it's one of my stories that I have. Where did I leave off on my story? I'm glad you feel like you're with me. I like it, you know. It's like I can be so worried and stressed out before I go live, and then when I see your names pop up and everything, I feel like you guys are just in the room with me, and I'm all relaxed. I'm at a show, you know. I'm glad that you like the slides and know that you can pause them and, you know, screenshots and stuff. And this is also partly why you want to join the school, because in my school I'll put these things. Yes. Yay, Schmetz. I agree. Schmetz was also the straightest needle that we could find when I was a sewing machine mechanic. For those of you who don't know that I was. Thank you for all your activity. We no longer are doing the giveaway based on your comments because I felt like I stressed you guys out. So know that you do not have to like work while you're here. If you want to share and interact, I love it, but you don't, it's not going to increase your chances of winning anymore. It'd take me days to go through and find out who commented the most. So now I should iron this, but I don't have my iron handy. I want to take and I want to put these two fabrics together for strip piecing. I am going to turn my iron because it would just be terrible to not. By the way, when I taught the paper piecing lesson, this is just too close up. I used blue thread so you could see the stitching and stuff. Otherwise this would be, you wouldn't be able to see it. But all of these seams are pressed open and what's holding the fabric on here is nothing, just the static cling from the batting. And this is just amazing how easy that is. I'm probably going to quilt this at some point. I know a lot of people want to know how to do free motion quilting without a pattern. Just kind of meander and randomly do things. I'm getting my iron ready behind the scenes. Feel free to bring up questions that you might have. Setting my iron on cotton setting. Did you guys hear me talk about pre-washing your fabric? Because the microphone was quiet for a little bit, and I'm not sure if that's when I discussed that. I'm pretty sure I did. I'm glad you feel that you've learned something, Fiona. You're welcome. It can be a very touchy subject, talking quilting. There's, we tend to love our educators. Yeah, and when you're pre-washing your fabric, use hot water and hot dry so it shrinks as much as possible. And so you lose as much of the dye as possible. I'm looking at my cheat sheet here. Oh, the back of your quilt. Should you use a solid piece of material or not? Do you guys ever have a sheet on your bed that wore out? Got a hole in it? You'll notice that your sheet will wear out in the middle first. Because as the fabric is stretched across the bias like it is when people sit on top of the bed, if your backing fabric is one big piece, it'll wear out in the middle first. So I recommend that you cut diagonally and then sew it back together and then use it as the backing. It kind of just de-stresses the middle of your quilt. Yeah, cold wash on cotton doesn't really shrink it very much. So you're likely to get more shrinkage afterward. And some people like the messy look of a quilt that's not pre-washed. Bamboo batting on that paper pieced unit. Yes, that was a few layers of it folded up there. So the woman that told everyone to not use polyester thread, she made a king size quilt for her bed. Actually, she was such a good quilter. Her friends were like, write a book. You need to come out with a book. So she did. The paint on the machine is covered in clear nail polish, which is why it lasts. I am going to show the drunkard's path as well. I'm just waiting for my iron to get hot and trying to keep my head straight on everything. And since I'm telling this story, I feel like I should do it without you staring at my sewing machine doing nothing. So what I need to do is switch cameras. If you guys only knew what I have to go through to do this. So I have my iron over here, along with my mouse and mouse pad. And I already had previously sewn these two strips together, so I'm just going to press them. And this time with the seams facing the dark side. And then I'm going to iron another piece and show you how to sew straight. Because that's the number one question I have, is how to sew straight. And I use Niagara spray starch, by the way. There's all kinds of debates on that as well. You might want to do it with your window open. Good air ventilation. When you iron, you're not supposed to roll the iron across the fabric. Because if you do, you spread your fabric out. So as I press, I pick up, and I'm really just trying to get the wrinkles out so I can quickly do this. Because this was all shoved in a drawer somewhere. This one is all wrinkly. And I can tell that there's spray starch on here. Because it has nice body and it's taking the iron really well. So why do we cut our fabrics across the grain? And if you're not familiar with the term across the grain, you're new to sewing. And across the grain is the way that the fabric expands, and we've discussed the cotton fabric, even though it's not a stretch material. In other words, despite the fact that the fibers do not stretch like t-shirt material or spandex, or like this jacket that I'm wearing, the fabric will stretch out or expand or become distorted by the way you handle it. And when we go across the grain, it gives it a little bit more movement. So when you cut all your pieces in different shapes and then you move them or position them in different directions, what you're in essence doing is creating a stretch fabric of sorts for the quilt top, so it's less likely to tear when people sit on the bed. All these little things that you may not have known. So now if I were just going to sew these two fabrics together, the first thing that I want to do is select my seam allowance. Hello, iron. Please don't melt my mouse. At the end, I'm going to do a little bit of questions and answers for any of you that have them. Yes, the jelly roll science is you got to glue it. Use our liquid-based glue because it's not a glue, it's water-soluble stabilizer in a bottle. And when it dries, it's like you put water-soluble stabilizer on both fabrics, the one on top and the one on the bottom. Is anyone else seeing me frozen? If you can still see me moving and hear me, give me a thumbs up, somebody. Sometimes it has to do with your internet, where you are. So when you go across the grain, when they cut these jelly rolls, sometimes they cut them across the grain, sometimes they cut them lengthwise. If they cut them all lengthwise, you'd have a better time with it. So if you ever get like freezing up, that's probably just your internet in your area having an issue in that moment. This is live. So I'm going to switch back to the other camera. I'm back. According to everybody else, I never went anywhere, Karen. But I'm glad that I'm back for you. You didn't miss anything. So now I am going to switch cameras. I'm saying this out loud so I remember what to do. It's Thursday. Look how pretty that scene looks. So now we're just going to do a little drop. And if it closed up because I didn't put the lid on, which I tend to do, just take a pin or an old worn out sewing machine needle and just kind of put it in there. And now we're good to go. Each dot represents, let me see if I can get better lighting for you. Each dot of this represents a pin that you never have to pin. Some people go, it's cheating to glue your fabric. But isn't pinning also cheating? So if you don't consider pinning a cheat, then gluing is no more of a cheat. And then I slide my fingers, kind of connects the dots. And this is very light, like I'm brushing a piece of thread off the sewing machine. Very, very light touch. So that kind of brings all the dots together to create a solid amount. If you don't know which side is right and which one's wrong, you stretch across the grain and it will tunnel. It'll wrap to its belly. It'll wrap to the wrong side. That's how you can tell the wrong side of a batik material. It does matter on how the needle behaves, whether or not you have your needle or your right sides together. You can get away with it, but the machine prefers right sides together or wrong sides together, complementing one another. I didn't really worry about what thread I have. I have a white bobbin and a pink thread, and right now I have 40 weight thread. I would normally use a 40 weight thread if I'm making a quilt that's going to go on a bed. However, you can also use the Invisifil 100 weight and the Deco Bob 80 weight in both needle and bobbin. And if you have the Deco Bob bobbins, they have worked perfectly. It's pre-wound bobbins with 80 weight polyester thread. It's about 30% more thread on a bobbin than if you were to wind a bobbin with cotton thread. The first thing we have to do is set up the machine to a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And with the Satinedge Foot, we use a measuring tape to do that. If you bring your needle down on one of the lines and then you move the wire on the foot to the 1/4 inch line, then the needle and the wire are 1/4 inch from one another. That achieves a 1/4 inch. This is the actual foot. And you can see how it has a wire inside of there. Now you can use your 1/4 inch foot if you like. I'm just showing you the foot that I designed for a woman who was blind. So this little nut, by turning it, it moves that wire in there to wherever we want within the zigzag opening. Some people take it too far and they go all the way out and then they bring the wire underneath the foot bottom. Don't do that. It's supposed to stay within this channel that you can see. It has like a channel, and that allows for thick threads to pass underneath it. Let's see if I can give you a better angle of that. There's the little channel there, and that the wire is actually suspended in air in between that. So when we use it for applique, your threads don't get stuck underneath the foot. So that's what I'm going to be doing. This foot and all of the feet come, if you buy them individually by themselves, come packed in a container like this. And it will say Creative Feet on it. If it does not say Creative Feet, it is not our foot. Sorry if this is loud. And the packages are reclosable. And they each come with different adapters. This is the Singer Slant adapter. And these are engineered to snap our foot onto our adapter and then screw it onto your machine A lot of people are buying our adapters in hopes of making their sewing machine be able to use other sewing machines' feet. We are not making those claims. You do so at your own risk if you want to try that. Inside of the instructions that come with it, I explain the foot itself. I get the story about why I invented it, and then how to attach it to your machine. And of course, we also have lots of videos on our YouTube channel. But this is the diagram. Even though this adapter is called the Kenmore tall shank, it doesn't necessarily only fit Kenmore. So always try the adapter that is the closest to your machine in length. And then we also attach to Bernina machines using a Bernina adapter, or you can get Bernina's version of the snap-on adapter and snap our foot onto it and then screw that on. However, their adapter is a little bit looser than ours, so you might prefer our adapter to theirs. And I know that lots of adapter talk, but I'm here to assist you. Okay, so this is one of the giveaways. This foot, a spool of the Invisifil thread, which is a lot more threads, 2,200 meters of thread on the spool. You should wait for the glue to dry, by the way, which I've kind of done while I talked all that time. Now you can see the foot's not snapping on. So I just push down on the nut and then it snaps right on. I have to set the foot for 1/4 inch. This does require a left needle position. If you do not have a left needle position on your machine, you could purchase a double needle and cut the right needle off. If you do that, wear protective eyewear. And I'll explain that a little bit better. Double needles look like this. And some of you have machines that, as long as it has a zigzag stitch, the needle can go swing in a left and a right swing. Then you can accept a double needle in the left and the right swing. If you need a left needle position, you cut off the right needle about 1/4 inch down from the red. And if you cut too high up, the whole thing breaks into pieces. But there are different sizes of double needles with different spacings. Some of them go all the way to 6 millimeter wide. Your sewing machine has to have a 7 millimeter wide width to use the bigger needle than that. So that is only if your sewing machine does not have left needle position. Now what I'm doing is I'm bringing my needle down on the line, and then I'm going to move the wire by turning the nut to the 1/4 inch line. And when I bring the needle down, I'm not inserting it into the actual measuring tape. We don't want to ruin the needle. And you just move the guide over, and now my needle and the wire are spread apart from one another 1/4 inch. What are you whining about? Where are you, honey? Tinkerbell's whining. Where are you? I can't even see her. Well, apparently I disturbed my dog. She's probably saying I'm too noisy. I'm wearing tennis shoes. I'm going to do a little bit on the close camera, and then I'll expand out to the other cameras so I can show you proper posture, because that's really important. Turn off my tablet. Move my tablet away because I can't put my elbow down without it hurting. A lot of you are taught to hold your hands like this, or you kind of pick up on this particular holding pattern where you're ready to pull from behind the foot and grab a hold from the front, and it's a tug of war, and as you're doing that, you're stretching the fabric out of shape. With these two fabrics held together, you no longer have to worry. Where are you? Oh my God, I'm sorry, you guys. I have no idea why she's whining. Where she is. Is there too much stuff in your way? What do you want, Tink? I was chasing the way. Okay. The drama. Puppy drama. Normally you have to worry about keeping these two fabrics together, but you can see that that's held in place without me having to worry about these two fabrics shifting side to side or moving at different speeds. Then I don't have to worry about my fabric puckering. And then I gently just kind of push toward the side of the foot, not up here and not back here, but right toward the foot. Just a gentle pressure toward the foot so it buckles a little bit. This is how blind sewers use the foot. They push toward it and then it feeds it right through. So I'm going to change to the other camera so you can see. Sorry about the puppy drama. What it is this is a very small space and she's the queen of the house. But she couldn't get around Chase. So when you saw the camera move, Chase had apparently laid down right next to the main camera and she couldn't get past him. And she was trying to let me know. She's back, right? She's got her sweater on because we're expecting snow this week. So back to how I sit with this. And before I said I had to move my Caterpillar tablet away from me. A lot of people ask what iron I use. This is Sunbeam. I got it at Costco. And I've had all kinds of expensive irons and broke them all. So I'm not deserving of a really fancy iron. I'm too clumsy. So elbows down, shoulders relaxed, gently push the fabric toward the foot. And it's not in any particular way. And then this hand, I have like a scissor. And I go like this and I have the fabric right along the inside of my fingers right there. And my hands are dry again. And it looks like worse than it really is because I use the glue and it looks like dried skin. And your hands do become dry when you sew because the fabric absorbs or draws oil out of your skin. So elbows down, shoulders relaxed, gently push. And I can't even see because the microphone is blocking my vision from the needle. Another thing you guys tend to do is do this. Try to look at the horizon, and they actually sell things to tip your sewing machine. But they have the machine tipped toward you, and that would be even worse than the machine being level. With the Satinedge Foot, instead of watching the needle, you watch the front of the foot, and then you don't have to watch the needle moving up and down. And I have some better videos, quick ones on our website on how to set for a 1/4 inch. So it's a gentle push toward. Notice that my arms don't move as I sew, and I'm resting. I'm just kind of having a conversation with you guys. After I've reached the area where there's no more glue, now I'm going to show you that you can sew without glue. But when I do this, I plant my finger about 4 inches from the actual needle. And I don't pull. I just put my finger down gently to keep the two fabrics together and then continue to push toward the foot so that I'm not guiding straight. The foot is doing it. My only concern is keeping those two fabrics together. So this would be strip quilting or strip piecing. And after you sew some strips together, you can cut them in different angles. You can cut them with straight cuts. You can also cut triangles out of them and sew them together to create squares, and it looks like you're really good at cutting all these different shapes, but you basically just start out with strips. It's a good way to start quilting. And I'm not going to keep sewing because the video will never end if I sew a whole quilt together. This has absolutely no puckers at all, even where there wasn't any glue. And the seam allowance is maintained. I'll go ahead and show you the other camera so you can see better. I should have used this side, have it. So this is without having to worry at all about the fabric shifting. And then I went to about here, and then this was sewn without glue. So with glue or without glue, it's entirely up to you. And this is partly why I don't like using an iron before I use my presser. I use the pressers first because I can get a real clean press right up to the stitching line. It's too easy to accidentally have it flip on you when the iron is over top. And sometimes when you iron, you might think you have it right up against the seam allowance, but the fabric can do this little baggy thing where it tucks under. If any of you have ever done that, give me a thumbs up. You know what I'm talking about. Then on this side, it's not flat. You have like a crease. It ends up looking pressed, but you end up with like a messy little crease like that. Hope you can see that well. So with the presser, this is how I handle it. I go from the inside and I press in one direction. Then I press in the opposite direction. And that gives me, I'm not really using that much muscle, but you push down and toward the actual stitch. It's kind of like erasing. And on this one, so this is pressing to the dark side. Both sides will be going in. This is where some of you end up with trouble when you try to do what they call seating your fabrics, or let me see if I can explain that better. I'm just going to slice off a piece real quick here. When you press your seams to one side, you have a thicker material on this side than on that side. And it ends up sticking up higher. So then if you wanted to piece this together with another piece, they talk about getting this fabric that's higher to fall into the what do you call that, gutter? Think of this as a curb, and you're going to sew in the ditch. That's why they call it the ditch, because you think of this as the sidewalk, and that's the street, and that's the ditch, that's the curb. And then when you go to sew another piece together, they talk about getting the curb on this side to be tucked into the curb on that side. And if you press always to the dark side, sometimes you can't get your pieces to be points no matter what, because mathematically it doesn't work out. When you flip it the other way, you'll end up with it not a perfect point like you see here, which this would be a perfect point. I hope I'm making sense. If any of you have ever had that happen before, where you cut well, and you know that you were really good at sewing straight, and then none of your points meet, or some do and some don't. It could be that you're following the rule of always pressing to the dark side. That doesn't always work. Now I'm going to do a curve piece for you. Remember, this is just a discussion. Yes, nesting is the term. One nests within the other. I think the term nesting is used too much, because you get birds nest threads on the bottom when you do free motion. You're learning so much today. I'm glad you feel that way. I feel a little bit loopy. Curve piecing. Where's that piece? I feel silly not having, I don't know where they are, the other pieces that go with this. I had it ready, I swear. Instead, I'm going to take one apart. And I already had one almost apart. I got worried when Tinkerbell started whining. so rare for her to make any noise at all. I think she's hot. It's too warm for the sweater right now. This entire quilt is done with my seams open because I'm going to use the Octi-Hoops and Free Motion quilt. When you have your seams spread open, the quilt is more vulnerable to coming apart at the ends. So you can't just do your string piecing, or shouldn't just string piecing and piecing string pieces where you sew a piece and you leave it connected to another and you never reverse or secure the beginning and the end. And you can get away with that when you're nesting or folding over your seams, but when your seams are open, well, now the whole thing can just fall apart. So you can still string piece, but you need to forward and reverse at the beginning and the end of every one of these. And that is what I did in order to construct this. I secured the beginning and the end of each one, and I did do some string piecing initially. There's one piece. Oh well. There it is. Hate to take another one apart when I don't need to. On your 1/4 foot, the tip of the wire is slightly bent. Ah, did you hit it with your needle? Ever break a needle with it? We need to send you a new guide. So if you can remember, because there's a lot of conversation when we do these live videos. So Donna, if you could email me at info@creativefeet.com and say you need a new guide, we send it right out to you. It's an opportunity for you to go on our website and look for anything you might want for free shipping. And we throw the guide in because we warranty our products, even if you do damage to it, even if you were to drive over it with your car, as I showed last week, and I'll show again if it's real easy to find. We replaced, this is one I painted before. I should show you guys this. Because yes, I even had the Creative Feet painted, but then people were like wanting to order hand painted feet, and I don't have time to do all that. Here it is. Okay. Do not feel bad either if you damage the foot and we give you a new one. That's part of our lifetime exchange warranty. We're the only company to do that for sewing machine feet. And you can see this is the one that was driven over. So she's saying that the wire is bent. We just give you a new guide and you'll just screw that guide right on. This is the hand painted one. I put rhinestones on it. And I used to take these to the show, the painted ones, and show off. So now when you're sewing a curve, are you trying to sew a curve? Really? Or are you trying to maintain a 1/4 inch seam allowance and the fabric isn't straight? That is actually what you're trying to do here. See if I can get the rest of this thread out without ruining the fabric. Don't do what I do. Do what I say. That's the quick way to undo a seam. I'm going to press it. This would definitely be a time to use the spray starch. And if you use steam, do not move the iron when you use steam because that'll help spread it out. And then when it cools, it instantly dries in a stretched out shape. And in this case, we can't glue it. Because to sew these two pieces together, and there's no rule, by the way, on which one is on top. It's really up to you. See how weird the shapes are when they're cut correctly? They don't seem like they would even fit. And that is one of the things I helped with the Crafter's Edge, was to develop the proper math for a perfect drunkard's path template or die cut. Right sides together, means your fabrics are pointing in the opposite direction of one another. And this is where people go, oh, how do I do that? Just pretend they're straight and bring the two ends together. And this is where, if you do use there's lots of patterns, free patterns on Google. You can Google drunkard patterns and print out on a piece of paper and create your own. But this was done with this actual product right here, with the Crafter's Edge dyes, which can be used in lots of different machines. But we also have a crossover 2 die cutting machine, which I was going to have set up, but I couldn't find the table again. So this foot is already set for 1/4 inch distance away from the edge. And you watch the sewing machine needle usually when people sew. Sometimes people pin. And some people tell you to glue the two ends and then just kind of stretch as you sew. But instead you want to watch right here. And what we're doing right there is we're bringing the two fabrics together at that spot. It is not real scientific. You just want to make sure both of the edges of the fabric are touching the white part of the guide. The foot straightens it out underneath the needle. It's not that precise, is the word I'm looking for. Think of this as the front door to your house. And this fabric, this edge, are all the neighbors on this side of your block, all lined up, ready to come to your house for dinner. This fabric here are all the neighbors on the opposite side of the block, and they're also headed to your house for dinner. You want to bring the neighbors into the door together. They cannot come in one neighbor at a time. They must come in together at the door. The needle is inside of the house. You can't let them in the house unless you go to the door. Ignore the needle, watch the front of the foot, and then don't pull. And sew as slow as your brain needs you to, keeping your eye focused here, not at the needle. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Little stitching at a time. Ignore everything else. Keep your eye focused right there. Gentle touching of the fabric so we don't stretch this fabric and this fabric, because both are cut across the bias, making them both very stretchy. So the lightest possible touch you can have, keeping your eye focused there, not there, right there. It's going to look like something's going wrong back here, but it's supposed to look like that. Watch the front of the foot. Ignore everything else. Hear how the machine goes stop, start. You may not hear it that well because my microphone is designed to mute the sewing machine sound so you can hear me talk. But I'm just starting and stopping like little spurts on the machine. As I go around, stop, and then I'm adjusting, looking there. Ignore everything else. If you watch the needle, you can end up separating like that. If you push down too hard, you'll cause the fabric to move like that. So I want to keep your eye focused there. Very light touch. Take your time. After a while, you will be quick at this. Ignore everything else. Watch the front of the foot, which I'm struggling to do because I have the microphone right in front of me. Keep bringing the neighbors together at the door. And remember, I forgot what I was going to say. Then you just flip it over and it's beautiful. I'm going to see what you guys are saying. We're at almost 2 hours, which is not difficult for me to do. No, you don't glue your curved seams because it's just too difficult to do that. It's easier just to sew it as you go. So now, let's see. I thought about making one of my blocks with you. Yes, you can do that on the sleeves. Absolutely. If you've ever sewn sleeves in and you struggle to get around that curve, you absolutely can. And we have a technique for gathering the fabric called automatic gathering with our pearls and piping foot, and you can gather up the fabric and ease it in between to get a perfect cap sleeve. And there was a gentleman that makes men's shirts, and he's like, that just makes it super fast, and you can overlock. Oh, I'll show you that. That's kind of fun. If I have another one, I can show you. This is why I go too long. Then I go, I could teach you this. I could teach you that. And I can, but we don't have to do it all in one day. So let's see. I'm going to see if I had everything organized so that I knew I had all my stuff grouped together according to which, and they're on the bottom here, which pieces go with which pieces. This looks like one. So what you're not getting is that I have my squares, and I already plotted them out, sitting quietly in a good area, and decided which fabrics were going to go where, because this fabric has lots of different colors running through it. So when the quilt is done, there will be yellow areas and purple areas and green areas, and plotting it out ahead of time is life-saving, because sometimes I have one side going this way, and sometimes I have them go that way. So if you don't plan it correctly, you can end up having to rip out stitches. So this is one of those where they're going to come open like this and like that. So that means that these two fabrics need to come together, and this is the side that I would sew on. So you have the clip on there while you're thinking about it, okay? So I know that that's the side I sew together, and I'm going to do the same thing on this one. Oh, I cannot go live every day, at least not this way. If I had a crew doing everything else I do. So before you would sew these two pieces together, you would check to make sure you're square, because 4 of these should equal a perfect square, which I already did. Sometimes it's easier to sew with the fabric going this direction. Sometimes it's easier going this direction. And I'm going to switch to the smaller or the tight camera and explain that a little bit better. I can't wait until we're doing the free motion quilting on a king size quilt lesson as the bamboo batting flying through the air. Is this lighting a little romantic feeling? I love the butterflies. This is, it's been very, very fun actually, sewing on my little butterfly machine. So this is what I'm talking about. You have this side or that side. It's always better to start on the side with the seam allowance. And you could glue this together before sewing, especially if you have hand challenges with your hands. There's no reason not to. But I like to also show that you don't have to. To make sure you're lined up properly, you would pull this one back. These are not nestable because, oh sorry, that's my hair in the way. This is not nestable because the seam's laying flat. So the way to see that you are lined up properly is to pull it back and see that it's lined up. Another thing you can do when you have seams coming toward you is use one of the pressers. And it's just they're kind of heavy all on their own. So it's just kind of keeping the fabrics from slipping. And I always start in like a 1/4 inch, do a stitch or two, and then reverse. Remember, open seams must have reverse or must be secured at the beginning and the end. And then we just take and plant our finger. Another thing that I do, I generally use a shorter stitch length when going across, but I'm also using a different thread as well. So I'm probably going to want to rip this one out because it'll be the only one sewn without the same thread. Coming up to the end, I'm going to go ahead and reverse again. Secure those seams. And then end in. In other words, instead of coming all the way to the end, going back and coming back again, you end into the material, and then your knot is, that's very secure. And then you're going to press this open, and you can see how perfect that point is. Yay! That's what we want, right? Perfect paint. I didn't mean to say paint. Thank you. I try to be patient. I remember what it was like to learn all this. So then this is the presser again. And by the way, if you're waiting on a presser, tomorrow I'll be finishing them up. If you were waiting on a thread dispenser, they're made and they will be shipping. If you're waiting on a thread dispenser and a presser, it's the presser that's holding up the thread dispenser from being shipped to you. See how nice and flat that is without using an iron. But I do go ahead and I do press. It's my quilt. It matters. So I'm now going to just push steam through without ironing, just pressing, and I push steam through, and then it lays nice and flat. So that's 1/2 of this square. But there's also the end pieces that belong on this, and I thought I had it all together. That's the right size. Is it the right size? It looks like it's too small. Should be the same size on this side and that side, with a 1/4 inch overlap right here. And then you know you got the right size because it looks too small. Yeah, so it's overlapping. So I know that this is good, but I don't know if I should because it got separated from its piece. Oh, here's the box. There's no way I can determine it. That's all right. If I have to rip it out, I have to rip it out. You don't have to watch me do that. So now I'm going to sew across this one so that I end up with that one there. And whenever I made a block, I did another kind. I need to look at mine. I totally changed the design once I started making it. So you can see on one corner, there's 2 pieces, and it creates this solid appearance of a solid line going across like that. And then on the other corner is that. So you end up with a diamond or a square, and a square, and then a square. And I'll probably have this as a pattern for you guys so that you guys could make one. Because it'd be crazy not to. So if I'm building this, the other thing that I did was if I used opposite. So this is the darker fabric on the corner and this is the lighter one in the middle, and that is what I should be doing. This is why you want to plot your stuff out when you're awake so that if you quilt when you're asleep, you know what to do. Hi, Heather from Tasmania. Eve. I can't read. That's too much. You mentioned quilting, a king size quilt. I will be doing that. And yes, I'm using the quiltlets. And I can hear you saying yay, even though I can't hear you. I've been promising to, this is the quilt that I am making, and I will quilt it. And I plan on doing it on this show, probably 2 weeks from now. But I shouldn't promise because things can change my schedule. But no, it's coming soon. First of all, I have to finish the whole quilt. So now I'm going to sew those together. And as the rule, I always start where there's fabric and end. I always start where there's a seam and end where there's not. And then what do? You pull back, and it's not going to happen this time but it's a good rule. It's a good practice to always pull back on your corner, even if there is a solid, because then you won't forget when there isn't a solid. Start in a 1/4 inch so you don't have your fabric flipping up on you. So 1 or 2 stitches, then go back. This also takes the tension off the thread and prevents it from snagging and coming back at you, if that's ever happened to you when securing the beginning of a seam. Once again, I then pull back, make sure that my corners are lined up, plant my finger, but I'm not pushing down hard. Push toward the foot so the foot does the steering for me. I would normally shorten my stitch length whenever going across open seams like that. Do not sew faster than your mind or your eyesight can do, and I did a little bit there. You can also set your speed control so that you don't go too fast and startle yourself. What I love is how pretty those overlap in the corners. Isn't that nice? Now, if these were folded over, there would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 layers of material right there at that point. But because we've flattened them out, there's a lot less bulk there. Because when we come together, we're going to come together with another piece. And that's where I got so many layers counted up there. Once again, we press. Press with the presser first, then the iron. I always do that. I don't ever trust the iron first. Press aside. Well, Sandy, feel free to join the quilting topic and ask questions in there. And the school is Create with Clare Rowley, found on the Mighty Networks network. It's called, or the URL is in the discussion, but it's way up there by now. I will have it in the description below, as I always do on all of mine now. And create.clarerowley.com. You'll also find the link to the school at the top of creativefeet.com. It is the classes link. So I don't know who you are. And if you want me to be able to see who you are, then there's 3 dots on the top left-hand side of our group inside of the Facebook group. If you're not a member yet of my group, next week you can get yourself all ready so that you show up and we can see your name and your picture. If you are a regular, there are 3 dots at the top of my group, right below the picture of the group. There are 3 dots in a row, like this. I'm putting these dots in the chat. Oh, it's not letting me type. Why not? Because I have things lying over the keyboard. Okay, I'll have to do it after. Then when you're inside of the Facebook group, and the 3 dots, you choose group apps. And then when you click on that, it'll ask if you want StreamYard to know who you are or give them permission to see who you are. And you do that. And then next time you come into StreamYard, which is what I'm using right now to be live with you, you will be visible. So now the other side, I need a piece that goes with this, and I just don't want to mess up my quilt. Switch cameras, and I probably should just end it instead of making you endure me trying to find the piece that goes with this, because I grabbed it from the middle of a whole bunch of squares that I have ready to go. So I have no idea. And I don't like ripping out, especially because it makes the fabric weaker. But generally what I do is what I'm trying to do is have them each square be, this one's primarily purple. You see the purple pieces here, and this one has yellows, which I have fewer of. And this is for the other side, so I hesitate to use that. But I think you got the idea of how we press using the presser and how we follow it up with the iron. And all of the other hints that I gave you, I'll go ahead and if you guys have any specific questions right now related to anything you want, I'll give you another 5 minutes and then we will end for today, and I will be back as every Thursday at 2 Mountain Standard Time. We have this show called Fabrically Speaking Live, and something I've been wanting to do for a few years. I'm really happy to finally be able to do this for you. And hopefully next week, there won't be any issues at the beginning. No questions? No, see, Eve, the pressers, these are resin impregnated compressed hardwood. And because of the mixture of resin and wood, it doesn't distort the material. That's partly why I use this before I use an iron. It won't distort. It works really good on curved piecing. So you don't end up having your fabric stretch across the bias, because an iron will do that. The temperature of an iron being so hot, and especially on a humid day where there's moisture in your house. The moisture in your house coupled with the heat of the iron, even if you don't have it set for steam, will create some type of moisture. And when you iron, if you move the iron at all, it can stretch it. And then when it cools, it's stuck spread out, which is partly why a lot of people's Drunkard's Path quilts end up not laying flat when they wash and dry it the first time, because you have stretched it out. Then people square them off when they didn't need to square them off, only to find out after it's washed and dried. Then when it's dried as a quilt, as a whole quilt, it then shrinks in and the entire surface of your quilt top can pucker. How did I come to sew and quilt? The first thing I sewed was a little Barbie quilt for a friend of mine down my street who had Barbies. I didn't have any Barbies and she wanted a quilt. My mom was a sewer, but I hand sewed that Barbie quilt. I didn't actually use a sewing machine until I was about 9 years old, and my friend, her mother actually taught me to make a pencil case for school. And so I didn't let my own mom teach me how to sew the first time. But we did end up sewing quite a bit together. And I kind of took to it. Released my first pattern at 14. I had my own first business license at 14, selling skirts that I made in junior high. My dad later bought a sewing machine dealership. My mom and I thought he was crazy because how many sewing machines do you need? We were like, all you need is one sewing machine your entire life. And then He goes, "You don't know anything yet. Wait till you see what sewing machines can do other than just sew straight and zigzag." So it's a lifelong story, but that's kind of how it started. But I didn't work for them until many years later, actually. So my life story will be written. It's varied, and all of it led me to where I am today. What is this? Your name is Grandma Tink? Aw. She's so sound asleep. I hate to wake her up to show you all her right now, but she's wearing the little sweatshirt that I taught a few weeks back. I'm glad that you enjoy. Okay, so I already caught that. I'm kind of going through to see if there's any important questions, because can't always get to everyone's questions. Know that I generally will go back and answer them later on. But every week we accumulate more viewers and the chat gets longer. So the quiltlets that she mentioned, Eve mentioned, are elastic straps that I wear around my wrists when I quilt large quilts. And you'll find them at creativefeet.com, but they're prettier than what you see on our website. We'll be changing the image soon. They're teal elastics now. Know that we're building a brand new creativefeet.com site. Any issues that you may have working with our current site will be all fixed when this one releases. It's going to be a lot easier to pick thread colors and ink colors. Know that I'm also testing a whole new line of inks, because we're having trouble getting the ones that we currently sell. And if you haven't seen the inking, it is a blast. You can make your own fabric from plain white fabric. You can do an entire quilt that way. Okay. Oh, you said presser foot. So Donna wrote, she uses the presser foot all the time and she loves it, but she was meaning the presser tool. What color did you get, Donna? They come in a variety of different colors. And next week I will have a different color, because this one I keep having trouble finding. I like green, and everything's green, and I have trouble finding it. I guess this is it. No important questions. It was nice having you on this time, Bob. I hope that I taught you something and that you enjoyed yourself. Thanks for participating, everybody. I hope that you did register for the giveaway, as I no longer am doing it the way that we used to. We're using an outside service to help us because there's just too many of you now. And when I go live, I'm live in 3 different locations on the internet, not just where you're viewing me from. And I'm learning how to handle all of this. This time is our first time with high-res camera settings, and I hope to see that it looks better, so that the young lady that was frustrated with the cameras last week is no longer upset, and that you all can hear me better now that I have my microphone actually on. The Decobob bobbins do work in the Husqvarna machines. It's 80 weight thread, not 100 weight. Your machine has had issues, as with a lot of machines that tell you when the bobbin is running out, have had trouble with the Invisifill thread. Your machine's camera eye that tells the machine when the bobbin is running out can't see the thread because it's just so fine. So using the Decobobs, the ones that you find at creativefeet.com, is also good for the needle. By the way, it comes in spools. So you can get the bobbins pre-wound and you can get a spool to go with it. And you can use that for just about anything. You can use it for piecing and quilting and garment construction. It wouldn't be good for applique where you want your stitches to show. If you want your stitches to show, you use the Polyfast. 40 weight, beautiful. wonderful thread that goes the right speed through the machine. I will be adding some variegated thread. And variegated thread on quilts is really cool. If you've seen anyone do that, it is beautiful. Yes, the glue that we use is really not glue. It's wet water-soluble stabilizer. And when it dries, it's simply water-soluble stabilizer that will rinse away when you're done. I can't believe I was quiet for a while. I said so much stuff during that time. If you guys could see what I do when I switch cameras, I don't see your chat. And so I'm getting better at this, I hope. I'm going to teach you guys how to make a lingerie bag. Yeah, you get your jelly rolls. You want to, like, stick it in a lingerie bag. Then, unless the colors are tremendously, different, contrasting, and some of them do give you pre-washed fabric. Read the label. Remember, there is always a risk of bleeding red to white, purple to white. It's usually there's also like a turquoise color that can bleed into white. You can use the super universal nonstick needles for anything. It isn't that they're super nonstick. My son and I had to figure this out. Even though the package says nonstick, it's just one thing about the super universal needle. It's the actual construction of the needle that makes it super. Think of it as a souped up needle. And you can use it. It is a universal tip or a light ballpoint or rounded tip on the needle, so it's safe to use. You could use it on just about anything except for like denim, real denim, not stretch denim. As stretch denim is stretch fabric and needs a ballpoint needle. Leather, rawhide, you wouldn't want to use a rounded tip needle on that because it's like hitting a wall and the needle will break. So they have knife-shaped tips that cut through the leather. And that's why they still do encased seams, like on the seats of your cars and blue jeans. Real blue jeans. Yeah, this machine, there's chips of paint that have lost their way on every one of my machines that have been shipped. But that's from shipping it. And because the housing is plastic. I'm going to touch them up because you can. And I do have a video on how to paint your machine if you guys want to paint yours. It's on our YouTube, or it's on our website. I won't release that on YouTube because of liability issues. Yes. Okay. So I lost track of when I was talking about the universal needle. He actually contacted, most of the manufacturers were in the United States back then, but he contacted them and asked if they would engineer their machines to all use the same needle. It was phenomenal. It was an incredible thing because sewing machine companies like car companies and other things are very competitive with one another, and they didn't want to be the same. They wanted unique things so that you would think they were better than the competition, and to get them all to change to the same needle would have been an astounding feat. In fact, everyone agreed except for Bernina, and then he made the needle to match Bernina's system, and everybody else changed to what Bernina was doing. And that's a little true story, a little funny fact about the history of the sewing industry that I got to watch throughout my 48 years of being behind the scenes in the sewing industry. Where is your thing? I have to click on someone else's. Our feet, I invented them for the Janome originally. That's why I painted my first sewing machine. Janome was the first company to copy me. Sad story. Just remember, everybody involved in the copying of the creative feet that work for Janome no longer work for Janome, and most of them have passed away because it was a long time ago. I invented the creative feet the Satinedge foot when I was 19. The next foot, pearls and piping, when I was 20. And about 22 years old, I invented the sequins and ribbon foot. Each one for a different person, for a different need, and each for physically and visually challenged, as I will always try my best to make it so everybody can use the things that I create. Because I wouldn't have a company if it weren't for you guys. You want to make a bag. What kind of bag? That's kind of stuff to send me into school. If you have ideas, I got 52 weeks of a year. I got 52 live airings, right? 52 weeks in a year. Yes, they actually work in the Bernina as well. The bobbins are class 15. They're plastic. So if you have a Bernina machine and you currently have a Bernina that uses a metal bobbin, the metal bobbin does weigh more than the plastic bobbin, so it may affect tension just slightly, in that the bobbin tension will be looser, not heavier, which would require a slight reduction of needle thread to compensate for that. Whenever the bottom of your fabric doesn't look good, it's the top tension causing the problem. Whenever the top thread looks bad, it's generally the bobbin thread that is too loose or not in the tension. I do have a bag that you can do right away, is our Wise Owl shopping bag. But I think you're talking about purses, like heavy duty bags with leather, maybe cork fabric. Yep, I got plans for that. I already have some hardware to sell you guys for making bags coming up soon. Oh, by the way, this is the last day of Martin Luther King Day. And if you're in the school, there's a secret sale coupon. This is why you want to join my school, because the students get special deals. If you go to my website, creativefeet.com, and I would type, but the keyboard stopped working. Let's see. You get an extra 5% off using the coupon that you will find inside of my school. And let me get... You should have already registered for the giveaway. If you haven't yet, the link is at the very top of the discussion or in the chat. So you slide all the way to the top and click on the link. You have an hour, or you have another half hour to get signed in for that, and then it stops. Let's go to the school. I'll give you the new... Oh, I have the thing, but you can copy and paste from the chat. So this is my school. I totally forget every time to put this thing across the top. Oh well, I'll get better. Back to the chat. That's what I was doing. And yeah, the giveaway will be each week, I believe. It takes all the responsibility off my shoulders on trying to decipher the winner. It's either that or we go away from doing a weekly drawing and do something where you enter, and then at the end of a quarter we give a big prize away. Trying to see what you guys like, just trying to make it fun. I was also wanting to do something where there's games that you can play, but I don't want to have you have to pay attention to something else other than what I'm teaching. Thank you. You can watch me paint this sewing machine on my YouTube channel, by the way. I'm going to give you the link to that. Someone asked last week and I didn't. Something is tickling my eye. I wonder if I can look while I'm on live. Is it raining outside? She's acting like she just got wet. Whining and... So this is the link to me painting the machine. They warn you about going to your channels while you're live. I hope I don't mess anything up. It's not liking it. That'll be the last thing I share. There's something to watch for you. In 4.5 minutes, you can see how I painted this whole machine. And after I painted the whole machine, I took a picture and I showed it to my daughter. And she said, oh, it would have been so perfect if you made them daisies. So then I went and I repainted all the flowers after I had already painted them. So you might catch the little subtleties of that video and see how they start out one flower and end up another. It's not me, I swear. People say that all the time at shows. They go, you make it look so easy. And I'm like, honestly, the foot makes me look really good. So it's that light touch and barely touching and relying on the foot and elbows down and shoulders relaxed. It's these things that once you learn to rest, to not be elbows up and scrunching your body down when things start to get easier. Hey, what's all this noise? Come here. Come here. Come say hi. Come to me. Come here. Here she is. Little Miss Whiny. Yes. Her sweater's a little damp. So she's static cling. So you guys can actually out-sew me if you keep doing it. I barely get any time to sew. Ooh, is that thunder? Oh, we don't like thunder. What link are you looking for, Lorinda? It's cute. She was born with one eye, a hair lip, a crooked nose, and 2 sets of fangs. For every fang, she had 2. She was the runt of the litter. I met her the day she was born and adopted her as soon as she could leave her mommy. About 15 years ago, maybe 16 now. Yes, I can see you now, Lorinda. Now you're a red E again. Oh wait, no, that's somebody else. 3 just popped in all of a sudden. Yeah, Eve, if you want your picture to show up, here's what's going on with YouTubers. You tend to not know that you have a Gmail account or you actually have an account on YouTube. In order to subscribe to someone's channel, it'll ask you which Gmail account you want to link it to. So if you may have actually signed up for YouTube and don't even remember doing it, or you could be using YouTube from your spouse or one of the kids that plays with your computer. So you want to, up on the top left-hand side, there's a circle and you click on it and then it tells you what email address you're signed up with inside of YouTube. And if you take one of my classes, the ones that cost money, they have private videos, you're going to need to know your email for YouTube in order to have access to the private videos. So Lorinda, you're looking good. I can't see your face in the picture, but I can see that there is a picture. And Bob, you're showing up. So you're set up in Facebook. Patty, you're all set up. So Sandy, you're not, but you just have to give permission to StreamYard inside of our actual Facebook group on the 3 dots on the upper left-hand side, but below the image. Are you Are you wanting mommy to stop? They both don't let me go past 5. They start to whine and make noise. Both meaning my other dog, Chase. Where are you, Chase? And he just gets so frustrated because I close the room where he can look out the window while we go live. At the very top, let me see. I'll copy it again. Oh, I can't even go all the way to the top. Why won't it let me go to the top? Clear nail polish has enamel with fibers in it, and it does make the machine very slippery, which is great for sewing, so your fabric won't stick to the machine. I have no idea why I can't. I guess we have too many comments for me to go all the way to the top. I posted it in Facebook too. Let me see if I can find it in there for you. It's kind of like I'm just hanging out with you guys today in my booth. I just can't see or hear you. Thank you for joining me and making the show such a success. If you want me to actually teach something specific, make sure you join the school and ask, or inside the comments, tell me what you want. And be descriptive. And you can also send me emails at info@creativefeet.com. So where's that thing? Oh, here it is. Enter to win. Every time I do something outside of the app I'm using, I get a little nervous. I might end up like just going off air. Okay, I'm about to post the link where you register for the giveaway. And I'm pretty sure it's very expensive to use this app in a way where I would have my thing be the same, or the link be the same every week. And until I get this all down, I'm nervous to invest more money. It does cost money for each one of these services for us to provide you with this free content. And if any of you have participated in the super chats, which is how you donate money inside of YouTube, and I haven't said anything, is because I can't see them in this app, and I got to figure out how to do that. And if you did donate, thank you very much. It does go towards things like the fact that we are now high def when I go live. Now I have to really be careful about how my makeup looks. I put my makeup on and did my hair at 8 o'clock this morning, so no touch-ups. There you go. Okay, let's see. By next week, I should have my design wall up, and I might film part of it, and maybe I'll show you, because they're talking about that, being able to show you some more video when we're on live, like I can share it. So we'll see. Otherwise, I will let you know. Oh, I'm so sorry. This video is not live on the Mighty Networks, Bob. It's live on YouTube and Facebook. The recording, link to the recording is on the Mighty Networks after I'm done. I post it there. They can't stream or even store video on the Mighty Network yet. It's still a young company. Right now, all of our videos are stored on YouTube and inside of Facebook. So you're usually hanging out in Facebook. It'll be sitting inside of the group and on the Creative Feet fan page that is also available to you. And I think there's a link inside of the group in Facebook to the fan page, and there's a link from the fan page to the group inside of Facebook as well. Oh, Well, now you know I'm telling the truth. Better days. And I can't remember your name. You must like being incognito. So there's a Google Plus account. If you have a Google Plus account, that's where you can put in your picture, make sure you have the right email address. Okay. She's only 6 pounds, but it's starting to... Amy. Okay. Amy, Better Days. Amy, Better Days. I struggle with names, so I try to get better at that. The Sequins and Ribbon Foot, you want me to... There's a live video I did on embellishing, and I used the Sequins and Ribbon Foot. The Sequins and Ribbon Foot does a lot. I feel like I just used it last week. I know I haven't given it as much attention as... I did it on the applique. I showed how to applique with yarn. And but I do plan on doing an entire... that pillow with the Sequins and Ribbon Foot and the pearls and piping foot. This pillow here. Except for I'll do a non-Christmas season one. Maybe I'll do a Valentine one. Maybe. We'll see. I don't want to make promises. But this is done without seam allowances. It's all done with the Sequins and Ribbon Foot sewing ribbons down. All right, you guys, I think this is it. 2.5 hours. The link is still saying you have no entries. I don't know what to tell you. Other people have been able to do it, right? Because I was right away, people said they took care of it. Sandra? Hello, Sandra. You're coming in late, and I can see your face and your name, so you're set up, right? This is the end of this one, of this week. And know that I touched on several different techniques of piecing in this video, and it shows you that there could be a video for each technique easily. And if I don't do them live on the show, there will be some classes. And sometimes the classes will be done live like this, where you guys can ask questions and I'm actually live. That's the difference between having courses and watching a video, is that you have interaction with me and we actually can open up a Zoom chat. However, StreamYard just was merged, or I think they just merged with another company that's kind of like Zoom. So we may end up using that and going away from Zoom. I'll let you know. And that way I can just bring you guys in. I could bring one of you in right now live, but I have no control over what might be said by the other person. So I don't like going live on YouTube and Facebook, and because we had somebody be inappropriate when I went live once in a Zoom chat. Here, I'll give you the link again. I think it's still saved in my paste. This is the giveaway link. Know that I do send out newsletters. I try to get one out every week before I go live to remind you guys. But you have to open them. If you don't open your emails, then I'm not reaching you. If you have a... What was I going to say? It's because it's getting close to dinner time. What was I going to say? Darn it. That means it's time to go. So you guys need to register to win the prize. I don't pick it, and I don't have to look anymore. It should let me know. I think that it's within 48 hours they let me know who the winner is. And this week's giveaway is the Satinedge Foot. And if you already have it, you can switch out financially and even swap for anything, anytime, because some of you already have the Satinedge Foot. Satinedge Foot, a spool of the Invisible thread. And what was the other thing? Or was that it? I can't remember, but I wrote it. Oh, it's in the description of the giveaway. So I can't forget what I'm giving away. Isn't that good? Valentine's Day is coming up, so I'm planning something for Valentine's Day for you guys to make to give to someone. This particular sewing machine is a baby lock, and this is it used to be called the Quilter's Choice. So if you want to get this particular machine, that's what it's called. And I don't think they call it that anymore. I don't know what they call it now. But if you ask a dealer, I want a machine that's like the Quilter's Choice, know that it is a very good machine. I traveled all over with it. It ships, and I arrived and it still worked, even though this one had the needle threader fall off from being mishandled by shipping companies. So pretty good machine. And it comes with a table that you can use to do bigger projects. If you're left-handed with the octahoops, you need to have a table off to the left-hand side of the foot. Maybe next week I'll have that table on so you can see, but there's always a mess. Look at the mess. Look at this messy teacher I am. If any of you see me at shows, you know what it looks like on my table. It kind of looks like this, because I don't just teach one thing. Bye, Bob. Bye. Better Days. Bye, Amy. Okay. All right. Well, I know some of you just joined us and know that this video is going to be able to be played, and there's a period of time where my microphone got unplugged. And it's not an easy thing to unplug, so I have no idea how that happened. So I'll apologize for just kind of fast forward till you can hear me again. Yeah, if you're left-handed, you just have to have somewhere to put your hand. Because with the octahoops, we rest our hand. And you hold on to the little handle. So you need to have enough room to put your hand down. See how I can't put my hand down because this is there? So it's helpful to have something. You can also quilt without using this, but using the handles makes it more like writing. Okay, guys. Let's see. I'm going to get ready to boogie. I enjoyed having you guys here with me today. Thank you so much for participating and joining me for this, our third episode, season 2 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm going to give you all of the ways that you can follow me, so you can look at that and then in the broadcast. So I love you all, and I'll see you next week. Bye. Mwah. Remember, every Thursday at 2 p.m. Mountain Standard Time.